Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished leadership expert and an author from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Mr. Dennis Akkerman. Dennis, welcome to the show.
Hi, yes, pleasure to be here today with you, Ashu.
Thank you. Dennis is the managing director of Orbis Business School. He's an author of a book titled The Naked Leader and Business as Unusual. So, Dennis, before we come to your books and leadership, you worked in 25 odd countries. What moment led you to focus on transformational leadership?
Yeah, there's not a single moment. If I look back, actually, I'm not a person to keep the lights on. So since the start of my career, I've always been in roles that involved change in one or the other way. So I started my career in IT projects, and there was always some change component involved, mergers and acquisitions,
right?
Globalization of teams and processes and things like that. So that is, from project management, naturally, it flowed into change management and transformation. And I think life and also business is actually a continuous transformation. It's not just a one-off thing. That is what I learned over these years. It's also a universal skill, like I mentioned, in all these countries. The way we do things might be different, but at the end of the day, the transformational leadership skill is a universal skill around the world, and also the number one that we need right now in today's world.
Correct. You also speak of transformation beginning with the individual, and you say when you change, the world around you changes. What personal change did you have to undergo to become the leader you are today?
Yeah, that is very odd in a way, because most of the stories we hear and we love to listen to talking about the zero to hero. And also many leadership books have been written that how do you climb the corporate ladder? I think I learned the most, and that's my personal change, is the hero to zero journey when I left the corporate world. So I had this brilliant idea to start my own business after this 3-year expat assignment in Malaysia finished. So here I was in a foreign country. My startup didn't take off as expected. My marriage failed in the same week. I had to move to an apartment in a construction zone. I wasn't homeless, but not far off. I ran out of money. My sister passed away, and that all happened in the same time. So everything that defined me beforehand, I would say rather successful career, all the labels you put on yourself as a leader, as an entrepreneur, and all those things that external factors define you. Yeah, that all fell away. So the hero to zero was a kind of humbling moment for me, and also made me reprioritize my life and what I really wanted to achieve in my life.
Amazing. Very interesting. And, when you founded Orbis Business School, that must have come with challenges. What was one major challenge you changed or turned into an opportunity?
Yeah, so after this hero to zero moment, I went back to my old skill consulting, which is actually a straightforward business model. You send an invoice on a monthly basis, low risk, and I was just busy to get my life back in order. So the idea for Orbis Business School came around end of 2019. And if we look back, 2020 was quite an interesting year for all of us around the world when COVID came. So I had no income for 6 months. Luckily, 2019 I could sustain for a while financially, and I thought, okay, let's use that major challenge that we're all facing as the opportunity. So during that time, I created all the IP for Orbis. I got UK certifications and all those things. So by the time COVID ended, I had a ready to go business, and I launched in 22 right away with proper credentials, because I thought if you're new in the market, without any credentials, that's going to be a tough game to convince customers. So I used my time wisely, and despite the challenges and not knowing when the whole COVID would end, I think the time was right for me to launch it, and finally had the time to work on this venture.
Very interesting. Let's now talk about leadership and coaching, Dennis. You call adding pressure a zero-sum game. What does pressure, or when does pressure harm leadership?
Yeah, well, the most important is to find a sweet spot, because there is a healthy level of pressure in an organization to keep things moving.
Yeah.
If it's too less pressure, we got too complacent. It's actually much harder to meet deadlines, and they are shifting all the time. On the other hand, if there's too much pressure, what you will get is you get a lot of anxiety and stress, and there's only so much you can do in a certain time frame. And I learned a lot from top sport people that training is not only about the workouts, but it's also about taking appropriate rest. So I spoke with an Olympian in the Netherlands, my home country, and I said, well, how did you prepare your last day before your golden race? And he said, absolutely nothing. He spent the whole day in bed. And that was a big lesson for me, because we are always in this rat race and we think adding more hours equals more output, but I think it's far from the truth. So for me, if you look at the zero-sum game, it's like, how much energy do you take and how much energy does it give, what you're doing? And the same goes for your team. So it's energy management, end of the day.
Great response. Change is central to transformation. How do you help leaders embrace it and not resist it?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question for a lot of people, and not only leaders, but also people. So I know some people who reached mid-80s and they are still repeating the same behaviors with the same responses from their environment, and they are not self-aware. So I think growth starts with self-awareness. Now, the challenge with leaders often is that if you're not reflecting on your own behavior and the impact of your behavior, who's going to tell you? Especially on C-level, it's quite a lonely job. You can't share everything with your peers in the board of directors. Perhaps you have a listening spouse, but they might not be able to relate to your world either. Good friends. If you're listed on the stock exchange, there's also so much you can share outside of the walls of your office. So it is a lonely job. And the other hand is who tells you, for instance, your zip is open. And that's an awkward situation. Or you have a bad breath, right? Yeah. Awkward things. You won't point it out to people. So how do you know if nobody tells you?
Correct.
So I think transformation always starts with awareness. And even if you are not aware yet, I think most people or most leaders have some kind of nagging feeling that either there's something incomplete or something doesn't work out as expected. It only needs one extra step to look for it. You can hold up the mirror first and then work from there. So I think that is the most important step, is awareness step. That you are a work in progress.
Yeah, very interesting. You have what you call a stepwise framework. Tell me a little bit about this, and what are some of the biggest mistakes leaders make when applying your stepwise framework?
Yeah, the stepwise framework is a universal framework for transformation. So in both books, I relate to it, but from a different angle. So the Naked Leader is about self-leadership. And for me, self-leadership, the steps that you take in your life to expand your awareness. And the biggest mistake I see is that people want to take shortcuts, and developing awareness is really a step-by-step approach. You cannot leapfrog yourself to the final destination, if you ever reach the final destination, because as I mentioned, being is becoming. You're always in a work of progress, but going too fast won't work. So that is, I think, one of the challenges that I see in the stepwise framework. It is a layered approach. It's not that if you reach a certain level that all the other levels will always be stable from now onwards. Like I mentioned, I had a successful corporate career. Then you are thrown back to the basics and the foundation of your life. So life is up and down, and that makes life exciting as well in a way. Otherwise, it becomes very predictable and boring, right?
Right. Very interesting. Many leaders struggle with authenticity. What does authenticity mean to you in the context of leadership?
Well, I think I can summarize that easily, is that you show to your team that you're also a human. And especially in an uncertain world that we are living in, leaders are always expected to make the decisions all the time. Are expected, they look up to the leaders for answers. But what if you don't have an answer? In an ambiguous world, giving a clear answer, tomorrow is going to be like this. You need a crystal ball in order to predict that, and even that is not a reliable source of information for you. So I think this authenticity starts with admitting that you don't have the answer, and that is very authentic, because you can't promise the world which might not happen. Right. And in the end of the day, I think it is that you are human in all of it. That your talents, but also your flaws. And I think you will gain a lot of respect from the people. And that's not to talk badly about yourself or to put up a drama show. That's not what we mean with authenticity. There's a thin line, and you don't need to share everything, but just to show that you're a human. It takes away a lot of barriers for people.
Well said.
And you also get better feedback.
Absolutely. Well said. How do you help leaders see things differently when they're stuck in old patterns?
Yeah, that is some old patterns have become a habit for too long. And the awareness part we just covered. So if there's no awareness or that you need to do something, but the root cause of the pattern is, I think, the most important, to look into that, because patterns can be on a very superficial level, like, oh, I want to work on X, Y, Z. But what is the underlying? There's a reason why you develop that certain habit. So what I do is, and I'm sure you also relate to that from a coaching perspective, is I do not give the answers right away, or you should do this, or you should do that. So in my coaching practice, but also in my books, actually, I like to ask a lot of questions. There are more questions than answers in these books. And by asking the questions, or sometimes I use metaphors, I want to trigger thinking so that people start to question certain things by themselves. And that is way more powerful than I tell them. I can see things rather quickly now based on my experience, but that's not the point. They need to see it for themselves. If I can give you one example, I had one coachee that we did an assessment, and I did a 2-day program with him, and he was very joyful person, had good rapport with everyone, a lot of laughter. But the assessments show that he was very low on self-esteem, overall happiness, and things like that. And I found it a bit odd, because I thought, is it the wrong person that we assigned this assignment to, or what's going on? But luckily, he came to me after the session, and then he said, yeah, actually, I'm surprised by this outcome. How is that possible? And then I asked a few more questions. And then I said, hey, do you know the stories of these famous comedians? He said, what do you mean? And then suddenly he realized comedians are very good in making other people happy, but deep inside, they might be even suicidal or having depression or other challenges. So then the light bulb shone, and he said, yeah, actually, you're right. Actually, I'm not happy with myself at all. So I said, stop focusing on other people. First, connect back to yourself. So that kind of light bulb moment, that's the reason why I'm in this job. That's fantastic if people open up that way.
Amazing. What a great example. Thank you. Let's now talk about both your books. You have 2 books, The Naked Leader and Business as Unusual. In The Naked Leader, what does getting naked mean, metaphorically?
Yeah, the disclaimer is, of course, I won't remove my clothes, and neither do I expect that from any other people. So it's not literally in the physical sense being naked, although there is some parallels. I mean, we are born naked, and I would say we also die naked. And what we do in between is then the big question called life. But also, when you look in the mirror in the morning, who do you see in the mirror? Who do you want to see in the mirror? So there is some similarities with the physical world. But nakedness here really means the authenticity is that, do you have the most accurate picture of yourself and the world around you? And that needs a very high level of awareness to be able to see that.
Right.
And that is, I think, the journey that I try to help people on in the Naked Leader with this stepwise approach, asking the questions and past, present, and future, how you're going to deal with that.
Amazing. You also write that being is always becoming. What inspired that idea and the title?
Yeah, it is. We are always a work in progress. So when it comes to personal development, I think we are transforming in every single moment as a human being. Even our cells are being replaced on a continuous basis. So
Correct.
even if you're not, let's say, consciously working on yourself, you're still changing, and the world around you is also changing. So and the universe is also expanding. So if you look at it, everything is always in a flux. So that is, I think, being equals becoming is a strong metaphor to describe that process. But is it happening for you? Is it happening with you? And how much are you in charge of that process? That is, of course, the main question.
Well said. Why do so many leaders struggle with self-awareness, and what can they do about it?
Yeah, what I mentioned earlier is that there are not so many opportunities to get honest feedback from your environment. That is really a struggle. And the more senior you get, the less likely it is that people do what you need to hear and not what you like to hear.
Correct.
So I think that is why a lot of them struggle. But the other one is also, see, what brought you here as a leader and as a business might not necessarily bring you success in the future. And you see the famous examples like Nokia and Kodak. What brings success? Risk management. The shareholders also want to have predictability. So the tendency is to hold on to what brings you the success today. And you need to let go of that illusion of control and actually reinvent or challenge yourself and your business on a periodic basis to not fall into that trap.
Amazing. Let's talk about your second book, which is Business as Unusual. Tell me a little bit about your book and which transformation dimension do leaders often overlook and why?
Yeah, the business as unusual extends where the Naked Leader finished. Or what this said. So Naked Leader is about the self-awareness and self-leadership. That's where it starts anyway. Change starts with the self. Business as unusual is about business transformation and get yourself ready for whatever comes. And what a lot of leaders often overlook, in my opinion, is what is the stable foundation and what is not changing. Because every time an restructuring or a big change is announced in a company, you kind of pull the rug, and then people all get back into a kind of panic survival mode. And I think that's not the right way to drive a change agenda, because it's a fear-based response that you get. And most important is, what is your stable foundation? What are things that are not changing is as important as what is changing.
Very interesting. Time for two more questions for you. What are the main mindsets you feel differentiate organizations that thrive in uncertainty from those that falter?
Yeah, that's the number one thing is psychological safety and trust. And that is the belief, the conviction, I would say, the conviction of the leadership and the team that we are in this together. And I always make this metaphor of the ship at the sea. You don't, if you sail the oceans, you don't know in advance what kind of weathers you will encounter, which storms you will get.
Right.
But the belief of the captain in the crew that, hey, we are on this boat together, we all want to come home safely, that will make the difference. And that is psychological safety, in my opinion. You created that safe space that even on rough waters, you still keep afloat.
Wow. And my last question for you, Dennis. What is the most common misunderstanding about business as unusual, and how do you challenge this in your book?
Yeah, the the most common misunderstanding, I would say, is the illusion of control. And then especially in the area of risk management. Because what we try to do with risk management is we try to come up with a plan for all the possible worst case scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
But have you anticipated the worst case scenario back in 2019 that was about to unfold? So you don't know what you don't know. So a risk management by definition is always incomplete. And even if you do probability analysis for, let's say, flooding in New Delhi, once per 300 years as a likelihood, it can be tomorrow, it can be in 300 years. So risk management in that sense is, for me, an illusion. You sleep better because you do your homework. But leadership, I think the transformational leaders are leaders that can lead in any scenario. So we prepare for any case rather than trying to predict the worst case. Now, if you're a lead in any case, then you're ready for whatever comes in the future.
Well said. And on that note, I just want to say what a fascinating conversation this has been for me, my viewers, and my listeners. Thank you for speaking to me about your journey. I think we covered some very interesting grounds on leadership, your perspectives on leadership, your thoughts on leadership. And then we spoke about both your books, The Naked Leader and Business as Unusual. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, Ashu, and
thank you.
Have a good day. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.